just a hack. He's just an absolute hack. And he gets his ass kicked by his teammates every week. It's just, it's terrible. It's just terrible.
We're finally back here on the Believe in FCS Football podcast. Joe DeLeone, Sean Anderson, two former FCS football players from the University of Rhode Island. We've got the national championship this Sunday, and we're going to be talking about it on today's show. Before we get to that, though, Sean, it has been a tumultuous effort to tape this show, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a good sign. Maybe it's a good sign that this isn't going to just be an easy taping, that we had to do it multiple
We had to really work
times.
for it. We had to work for our food.
We had to work for our food, and I think that it's a good sign that the game is going to be great this Sunday.
I disagree.
You disagree?
I think
screw me for being positive.
When
then.
trying to record a podcast, it's not the same. It's not the same as Rogan going out to the woods and killing an elk and then eating it. Okay, I'd rather it work. I'd rather it be the situation of, oh, go to the Harris Theater, buy a steak, and then grill that, opposed to really chopping the wood that we've been doing the last couple days with scheduling and I would just say general difficulties.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a weird week, just because of the timing of everything. But regardless, we're here to talk about it. By the way, I have to say a quick reaction to Reddit FCS trying to dunk on me yesterday. They were trying to point out that I didn't know anything about Holy Cross football, and the fact that they thought I didn't know about Gordy Lockbaum, who is one of the greatest FCS football players of all time, is just disrespectful. They implied that I searched it on Wikipedia. Did you see any of this back and forth that I had?
I missed the back and forth.
Oh, do you know who Gordy Lockbaum is, though?
No.
He played for Holy Cross. So they were trying to randomly bring up which team was the best ever to not win a national championship. And it was that 1987 Holy Cross team. That was one of them. Gordy Lockbaum was a Heisman finalist because he was a running back, a receiver, and a defensive back. He played three and a kick returner. So he was like the best player in the country, but he didn't win.
In 87?
Yeah, in 1987.
Oh, well, I need to educate myself then. That's pretty rad.
Yeah, it's pretty rad. They tried to dunk on me by saying them and also Dustin tried to dunk on me by saying I was 12 years before I was born, but nonetheless. Sean,
What is Dustin Helton getting on you for?
He wasn't even a part of the thread. He just came out of nowhere. It was like that. I don't know. We're hacks. Sean, can you share with our listeners where they can bet on this weekend's game before we get to talking about it?
I would love to, if you're going to be betting on this weekend's national championship game for FCS football and not Mario Party, which is what I was doing last night. BetOnline.ag does not feature those odds. But the odds for the upcoming game, South Dakota State favored by 5, over under at 47.5, 56-degree game time weather in Frisco, not Fargo, Frisco, Texas. Frisco, Texas. So if you like any of those lines, I don't hate the over. I should, but I don't. And then South Dakota State by 5. Ooh, just North Dakota State fans bet for North Dakota, and South Dakota State fans bet for South Dakota State. That's what you're going to do. Anyway, so don't listen to me or whatever I have to say. It's all conjecture. Head to betonline.ag. That's where you need to go if you're going to be placing these wagers. And if you haven't done so yet, head to betonline.ag, join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use our promo code BLEAV, that's BLEAV, to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Thank you, Sean.
Of course.
Beautiful.
It always is.
The construction that is happening in the adjacent office is really this is a whirlwind of just every time we try to tape there is some type of an annoying interruption. But
what's a whirlwind?
Whirlwind. I said whirlwind.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
It
must have cut a little bit during the word.
All right. Well, it's a new record. We're 4 minutes in, and we're actually getting to the football today. I know that the haters of the pod are going to be happy that we're actually getting to the football. The lovers of the pod are disappointed that it's taking us this long, and that we didn't waste more time. But Sean, getting into this game.
The meat
We've
and
reached this
potatoes.
point- meat and potatoes. Is that your description for it?
No, I'm saying let's get to the meat and potatoes here.
Okay, let's get to the meat and potatoes. 2 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. I want to talk about this just really quickly first before we get into actually breaking down South Dakota State, North Dakota State. We've said it a couple times. I just want to get it out of my system. I'm still pissed that this game is being played in the middle of the NFL slate on a Sunday. I think this is ridiculous. And it's not even a matter of, oh, it's disrespectful for the FCS. That is a factor. But I just think that this is horrible, horrible, horrible planning by the NCAA, by ESPN, that they thought placing this on a Sunday in the middle of the NFL slate was a good solution here. Should have been in the morning on Saturday, like it's always been before those Saturday NFL games are played, and then this game could get the proper attention it deserves. I would not be shocked if this game doesn't have terrible ratings. I think it's very possible, and it sucks that I'm sitting here admitting this, but we on this show hate the NCAA, and we bash those that poorly represent the level of FCS football that us and our listeners enjoy watching.
Well, I'm a dumb bureaucrat, so I love the NCAA. So speak for yourself, please.
You're not a bureaucrat.
Oh, way to pick up on the sarcasm, the shtick.
Okay.
Way to roll with a bit there, DeLeone.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be on Saturday. Placing this on a Sunday with plenty of runway and scheduling, which is all anybody ever does. It's all they're talking about in the FBS. It's all they talk about in the NFL. It's all they do with TV contract deals. Put it on the Saturday when everyone is hungover. They can wake up excited and sit on their couch and watch the game. Do you know how many just casual viewers you're going to get on a Saturday afternoon in January? Do you know what time we're in? We're not in the holiday season anymore. We're in the dark times right now. We are in the stretch of 3 months where you're not going to want to do anything. Okay? So if you're a weekend warrior gym guy, go ahead. You're trying to start the new year off right, trying to be somebody. Go ahead, do that. You come home, you just want to lay on your couch. And you know what you should be watching on Saturday? The FCS championship game, but you're not going to be doing that. You're going to be too juiced up on Sundays. For the most part, it's casual viewership because FCS fans and viewers will watch this game no matter what. But casuals, ratings, getting more people inundated into this subconference, vitally important to have it in a time slot where you can get more casual viewership.
Right. When FCS football was being played on those Fridays and Saturdays, as I kind of lamented over it being on a Friday, but I will say that Incarnate Word North Dakota State game that was on during my office party, I was looking at Twitter and tons of people were talking about that game because it was the only thing that was on that was going on. And people tuned in. They're like, wow, this is a great game. And people that don't know FCS football were just like, what level are these teams? Who are these teams? It's given attention to the sport. And I continue to bitch about it because I think everyone should be complaining about it on every preview show talking about this week because it's ridiculous. I'm willing to bet, Sean, this is how it went down. There were a bunch of dorks at ESPN sitting in an office and they're like, oh, we need something to put on air on Sunday. Oh, do you think we could see if we could put the FCS game on in this time slot? Yeah, why don't we ask him? Okay, let's just slot him in there for now. And that was the extent of the conversation. It wasn't, how do we maximize this between two good teams when people spend the last couple weeks watching Miami of Ohio versus UAB on random parts of the day on a weekday? If people were willing to spend time watching that crap, why wouldn't they think that people would spend time watching two better teams than those two teams playing for a national championship game? But again, nonetheless, the disrespect continues.
Yeah, it's you know what? Thank God for Sickos Committee and No Context College Football, because they're drawing in people, they're putting the plays out there. But we shouldn't have to rely on these Twitter accounts to be able to carry and get people interested in and even aware that there's a game on. Like that's not what we should rely on. Reddit college football. We need to. There needs to be a way where it doesn't feel secondary or even tertiary to other things. It's a championship game. All right. Yeah. I like that you said that other preview shows should be drawing attention to this as well.
Yeah. We are going to be drawing attention to this, though. So let's get into talking about this game. South Dakota State, North Dakota State. I want to tackle this from the angle of what are the major things to focus on for both these teams. And if we're talking about South Dakota State right now, they are the behemoth to beat, which feels odd to say in a game where North Dakota State is playing. And an outside onlooker who hasn't been paying attention is going to go, oh, North Dakota State's back. Oh, they're just going to win another national championship. Not so fast. Sean, we got to talk about here. What do we think actually can hold back South Dakota State? What do we think, if there's anything to be worried about with South Dakota State in this game, what is it? Because every step of the way, they have dominated. Where they did have some fits was against Holy Cross, trying to corral Matt Saluka, which they did at the end of the game, and they ended up closing it out and winning in a pretty effective fashion. Cam Miller's a pretty good athlete, not the same level of passer as Matt Saluka, but your thoughts on what you think might hold back South Dakota State if it is somewhat possible.
Yeah, the Saluka and Holy Cross game, it's interesting that you brought that up because Holy Cross threw everything that they could at South Dakota State. They did a really good job for the first 3 quarters, and it got a little out of hand in the fourth quarter for Holy Cross. But for 3 quarters, they tried onside kicks, 2-point conversions, trick plays, everything that they could do to keep South Dakota State on their toes. North Dakota State, I think, is going to try to do that. They're going to try to draw from that game. And the one thing that South Dakota State has to do, it's going to be Cam Miller that they need to lock up on the ground. You need to limit his rushing touchdowns because Kobe Johnson's going to get his. He's going to get his. The offensive line is too good. The fullback schemes are too good. They're pulling tight ends to take out a defensive end or a linebacker. Their running scheme is so technically strong at North Dakota State that you have to let Kobe Johnson get his, but you can't get picked apart by Cam Miller on the ground either, because you're not going to get picked apart from him in the air. And by me saying that, he's probably going to go 15 for 21 for 200 yards and a touchdown to a tight end. But regardless, you can't let him beat you on the ground because they're going to understand that the big threat on this team is Kobe Johnson. And then Cam Miller picks up a lot of the slack, though. He does. So South Dakota State needs to be able to prep. I don't even want to just put a spy on him. I want to see schematically containing from the defensive ends and the outside linebackers Cam Miller, because if you're diving Kobe Johnson through the inside, Cam Miller pulls it around the outside. You get defensive ends to bite. That's where he's going to feast. So you can't let him do that. You need to play disciplined defense to stop this rushing attack. It's not Daniel Jones-esque because he's not Daniel Jones, but you know what you can't let Daniel Jones beat you on the ground.
Right. I really do believe that Cam Miller for both teams is going to be super, super important. And I want to get to that North Dakota State perspective in a second, but to continue what you're talking about here with South Dakota State, is that we've seen at times that athletic quarterbacks have given them fits. What is a positive sign is the way that they played against Montana State, which has the double-headed monster of Chambers and Malott. And I know that there were injuries that helped them close out that game a lot easier than I think in a normal circumstance they would have. But if they show up, they play the run game the way that they did, it's going to be a pretty easy game for them. It's going to be a very winnable and achievable game for them. But one thing that, as much as the last show that we talked about, as concerning as Cam Miller is as a passer and the issues that he's had lately and the lack of confidence that I have in him to actually take over this game through the air and pick up chunk plays through the air, he's a big reason why they have success running the ball. Everything operates through him. A lot of the schemes that they run come from his decision-making as a runner. And that's exactly what you were just talking about there, is even if he goes 2 for 60 and he just has the worst passing day in the history of FCS football, he's still good enough as an athlete and as a runner. And I don't think it's talked about enough with Cam Miller that he could be the focal point for, he doesn't even need to go for 150 yards rushing. Just the decision-making when they're running those option plays.
I love that you brought up the decision-making, because that's what it is. You can't in a simple read scheme, you have to make the right call 99 times out of 100. You cannot let a defensive end beat you if you're a quarterback in decision making. And if he's going to charge in, if that one time out of 100, the defensive end sprints in and tackles both you and the running back, it happens. It's football. He's on scholarship too. But and we've seen it. Cam Miller doesn't make those mistakes very often. He knows when to hand it off. He knows when to pull it. He knows what to do when he's at the line of scrimmage. And I think that's, God, if he didn't, how much belief would this North Dakota State team have? And how would they get this far with a passing attack that has been not great this year? Not great. It's been kind of impressive to see what he's been able to do and to continue to hold on to the reins for this team, as we've seen in the last couple of years. And we've been in what is it? A little judgmental, not judgmental, but we've judged him fairly from what we saw in person when we went to see him in person. And then throughout the last couple seasons of him at North Dakota State, it's been interesting to see his progression and take a leadership role, even without being a huge passing asset for them.
Separate from all of that with the Cam Miller stuff, because again, I want to take a different angle in a second talking about North Dakota State. What we know about South Dakota State, though, let's just talk about the positives really quickly. Best offensive line in the FCS, and if it's not the best, it's the second best in North Dakota State. That offensive line has a number of guys that are going to get at least NFL tryouts because they're big, strong, aggressive, mean kids that have been there for forever and have taken a ton of snaps. On top of that, the Yankee twins, very talented receivers. They've got a number of different options, but the big one here is one, being able to rely on Isaiah Davis, and then two, having Tucker Kraft to toss the rock to when it's third and long, second and short. In any situation, he is the best offensive player in FCS football and the most talented offensive player just from a draft perspective at the FCS level. He, to me, is going to be really important in this game. Can North Dakota State nut up? Can they cover him? Can they have an effective game plan to maybe not take him out of it, but at least neutralize and slow him down? I think that's super important for how they cover Tucker Kraft. But again, South Dakota State has all the juice right now. Front to back, offensively, defensively, even with injuries, we've seen on a week-to-week basis throughout the entirety of the season that they are far and away the best team in the country.
It is, if you want to take away Tucker Kraft, good luck, because Mark Gronowski has a bevy of weapons. He went for 2,700 yards this year, 23 touchdowns, 5 picks through the air. That it's not a Lindsey Scott offense, but it's very they operate in a way that is so balanced and so strong because they have so many guys that can take the rock and make plays with it. They have guys that you could say, okay, we need to run some more, and we can do that, or we need to pass some more. We can do that. It never feels out of necessity to get one or the other going. It's just, when do we want to get it going? And that's an offensive coordinator's dream, to have players that are ready and capable enough to be able to to flip that switch and say, okay, time to bleed out the clock. We can do that. Or time to drive down. Let's get a quick score. They can do that. And a lot of it's getting points off of turnovers. And we know we see it all the time. I mean, in the FBS semifinals games, points off of turnovers, the next play, sudden change. South Dakota State's really good at that stuff. We saw it in the semis a lot, how these teams on defense, they're not ready for the sudden change. South Dakota State takes advantage of you when they get a turnover, because who are you going to cover now? You're not ready for it all. They get in a rhythm and they can bust it open whenever they want to. So South Dakota State, too many weapons for you to just focus and single out one. If you want to take away Travis Kelce, then Andy Reid is going to figure out someone else to get the ball to. And that's what South Dakota State has the capability of doing.
Horrible timing on my part.
Yeah, I was about to say, way to end a point strong while Joe's taking a sip.
Yeah. No, it was a good point, and then I just completely lambasted the momentum of that statement that you just had right there.
Well, maybe
Sean,
North Dakota State could do that when South Dakota State's driving. That's what they need to do.
Oh,
hey,
are you making fun of me? Are you making fun of me because that's how I would have transitioned? Sean,
it is what you would have done.
Eat shit. My focus here for North Dakota State is their effectiveness on moving the ball on 3rd and long, 3rd and medium. And I said this last year. I've said this a million times when they play this game, especially with Cam Miller in at quarterback, because he's a young guy. He's much more experienced now, but he still has a lot of problems throwing the football. Their offensive line is really freaking good. And it's the reason why they were able to beat Incarnate Word. Somehow they managed to win a shootout by running the football. Not a lot of teams are going to do that in any level of football. What they did is an extreme accomplishment, but this is a better defense than the Incarnate Word one that they faced a few weeks ago. Cam Miller cannot go 5 for 20, 5 for 12, whatever the heck that.
I thought it was like 1 for 15 or 1 for 12, something like that. It was not
something
good.
like that. Or 1 for 5 for 12 yards or so. It was something not good. He can't have a performance like that and not impact this game through the air. He can't have no impact. He needs to have some impact. They are going to be forced to throw the ball on 3rd and short, 3rd and medium, 3rd and long. There's going to be a 3rd down, multiple 3rd downs in this game because South Dakota State's defense is good enough to slow down their running game on multiple drives. And if Cam Miller cannot make those plays, this game is over. We already know the winner. That to me is so important.
The Incarnate Word win, though, is so impressive because North Dakota State was 2 for 11 on 3rd down. They were 1 for 12 through the air for 5 yards, but they ran for 328.
So they were able to produce all of that rushing production on early downs. And then in those situations, you said 2 for 11 or 3 for 11?
2 for 11 on 3rd down.
I bet most of those passing plays were called on 3rd downs, and I bet that most of them were really bad throws.
This is less penalties, though. They're not a highly penalized team. This game between Incarnate Word is such an anomaly for what we see in the modern game of football that it's almost unbelievable looking at it to say that that North Dakota State could have won that game. It's truly unbelievable to say, what? How did you do this? How did you do this? How did you win this game like this? People throw the ball. People spread it out wide. The game has been revolutionized. You're still running
it's 1965
like
this? for North Dakota State.
And they don't care. They don't care. They're going to win the game. That's what South Dakota State has to be most prepared for. North Dakota State are winners. They're winners, and South Dakota State knows that. They win football games, and they've done it through the 2010s. They've done it now. So if you have to be better than their culture. You have to be better than that winning culture at South Dakota State. And we can talk about the marker games. You guys 2-0 in the last 2 years. Congratulations. You have to go 3-0 here if you really want to get this championship locked in.
And I know we say a million times on this show, it's hard to beat a good team twice. But circumstantially, South Dakota State does happen to have the formula to do it, to do the one thing that nobody else has been able to do. And that is going to be really important here. Can South Dakota State not overthink this and come to this game prepared?
Jesus, that's nerve-wracking to think if you can or can't. I don't care who wins. It'd be nice for South Dakota State to get us some parity. It'll be fun for the FCS if South Dakota State wins. But I mean, I'm pretty unbiased about it, even though it'll be a storm from the fellas up in Brookings. Regardless, it's just going to be a really fun game with a lot of. I want it to be 8 quarters. I don't want it to just be 4.
What?
I want the game to be 8 quarters.
Oh my God, the physical state those guys would be in after going just mashing into each other.
I know. I just can't get
quarters.
enough of this matchup. I can't get enough of it. I want 8 quarters in this game. Figure it out, NCAA.
Well, hopefully the ratings are good, and actually, I hate to say this, I kind of hope the ratings suck. As in I told you so. It's not a great answer. It's not the greatest take in the world, but I really would like that. I absolutely would like that, Sean. So then we can purchase the FCS broadcasting rights for even cheaper.
You want to just tank it? Just
Yeah, how
get an
do we
illegal
keep
streaming
tagging it?
service, and then everybody watches it there? Why did 10 people watch
But-
this game? Yeah.
But when we're going to buy the rights for a tenth of the price, and then because we'll spend all of our money on buying the rights, we're not going to have the money to put together a production crew. So we're just going to show up with a cell phone. And
Yeah, that's where I was
stand
going.
behind the phone.
You can find the game on Periscope. Me and Joe will be on a ladder at the 50-yard line.
Whatever. To everyone who's at the game, to the crew of guys that we know that have been texting us, hope you guys enjoyed. I know it's going to be a fantastic environment. We're sad that we couldn't be there. We're rooting for both teams. We're rooting for a good football game. We'll be watching, and we hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. At Joe DeLeone, at Sanderson Radio. Sean, you got anything else?
Hack City on YouTube.
Yes, Hack City on YouTube. Drive safe, everybody. Enjoy Frisco.